And we're live. Wicked. Brrr. Here we are with Electra Amore. How you doing?
I'm fabulous, Zulu. How are you today?
Pretty good. I'm well rested. I'm loving the cool change. I'm in Melbourne, so it's just been ridiculously hot for ages. Cool change has been threatening, and it hasn't come until last night. It finally came, and now it's like massive storm, lots of rain. People were talking about 3 months or 9 months of rain in 2 days. So I don't think it's been that crazy, but it could be still on the horizon. So I'm loving the fact that it's not as hot anymore.
It's wonderful and humid here in Sydney. The sun's shining. There's a beautiful cool breeze. Are you jealous?
No. Well, I'm not jealous because I'm in Melbourne.
Fair enough. And I'm off to the beach after this. Are you jealous now?
Yum. No, it's quite similar here. It's cool breeze and a bit humid as well down here. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like this is going to be a really nice and juicy topic of conversation. I've been excited about this one. I've been waiting. I know we locked this in a while ago, so yeah, I've been sort of like seeing it on the horizon. So it's nice to be here now. And
I'm really raw today. As we spoke prior to going live, I've got no makeup.
Same.
I'm raw, which actually really suits what this conversation's all about, because consent is a vulnerable topic, and so it needs to become negotiation, and that is a really something that's really raw or hard for people to actually or talk about. So I feel like I'm in the perfect Vogue moment to discuss this.
It's a word that's been coming up. It's just been coming through lately. Is Rawthenticity, or you're acting authentically. So raw and authentically together. So yeah, that's how I feel right now as well. I feel a bit authentic.
Authentic. I like that. I haven't actually heard that.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're both there with it.
Excellent. So let's just back up a little and let's tell everyone who you are. What you get up to.
Okay. So let's do this. I'm a professional dominatrix here in Australia. For those that don't know what a dominatrix is, I specialize in making other people's fantasies, fetishes, kinks, role play scenarios come true on a professional level. So I hold space and guide people through scenarios to do with BDSM, kink, and fetish.
So for those who don't know what BDSM is exactly.
Oh, thank you. Bondage and discipline, sadomasochism.
Yeah.
Bondage and discipline, slave mistress or slave master is also another terminology for BDSM.
And I've got so many questions. What does that entail? What does some of that entail, and how long you've been at it, and how'd you get into it? I've got so many questions.
Okay, so I'm heading into my 24th year next year as a professional dominatrix.
So you know what you're doing by now.
But I hope so. Yeah. It started out of curiosity for me to fulfill one of my own sexual fantasies, and it's led into a 23 going on to 24-year career. I've advanced myself within this career by doing external studies in somatic sexology, tantra, particularly a style called Irma Tantra, and the emotional clearing of spiral and clear your shit of late. And also something that's quite relevant to this conversation is Betty Martin's Wheel of Consent training as well, which I found one of the most valuable learning tools I've ever done.
So it started out as a fantasy of your own and became a thoroughly deep interest, and then you just sort of ran with it. You sort of immersed yourself in it and and like, I want to do this. I could see myself doing this. Like, was that kind of instantaneous, or did that take a while? Or
I was 21. It was so instantaneous.
youthful exuberance, huh?
Okay, so I'm a Leo chick, dominant, and at that age had an ego. I even had private number plates on my car called Leo Ego. Come on. So I came from it knowing that I had a dominant personality and wanted to explore that personality. And being a hit woman wasn't really an option because of the legalities that you get involved with behind that. So I looked at other means. And this is at a time prior to internet, prior to mobile phones. So finding information was really hard, and it was sort of just by expressing myself. And Madame Lash had just come to the forefront in Australia.
So Madame Lash, talk to us about that.
Madame Lash is a very well-known identity here in Sydney, but also Australia, who became a very famous dominatrix during the late 80s, early 90s.
Cool.
She's still alive. She's still around, I believe, in her artistic format, but not as a dominatrix anymore, because she's well into her older age.
Cool. So that was someone who you had on television, just in the scene? Like, where did you
I think it was media, so publications of newspapers, TV, word of mouth through the club scene within Melbourne itself.
Cool.
Yeah.
And like, you straight away started like jumping in and getting clients and things. Like, how did that all happen?
I approached a house several times. So back in my days, there was in Melbourne, there was establishments that took on apprentices.
Yeah, cool.
And there was 2 houses at the time, and I approached one house several times. It took me quite a while to get into.
What was it, like an application, or you had to speak to them?
Telephone.
Okay.
Telephone, talk to them. Do you have any positions available? No, not today. Bang. Yep, we're looking for some apprentices. Come on in. This is our address. Let us meet you.
So here's my number, 039, or it might have not even been 03 back, or 9 back then. Would have been 3.
No 9s even either.
Yeah.
So it rocked up on the door, and the door was answered by a leather-clad woman. She looked me up and down and went, "Oh, come on in. Take a seat in the lounge. Mistress Britt will be with you in a minute." And Mistress Britt, the lady who ran the House of Domination at the time, came in, interviewed me. As I said, I was 21. I was fresh meat, naive, egotistical, and passionate to learn. And she hired me on the conditions that I would be a submissive first.
Cool.
And that's how old training used to be. It's not how we train today. But I agreed to the terms of being a submissive, not really understanding what that was about. That was an eye-opening experience, and one where I learned about consent instantly.
Yeah, so for you, was that, I imagine you walking in, the person looking you up and down, Mistress Britt, you said, and then were you like attitude, like looking her back up and down, what's this bitch looking at me like this for, kind of thing? What was your mentality?
No attitude. Admiration and
what was it, sorry?
Admiration. Like, I had just all this admiration towards her, and in awe and curious. Definitely a lot of curiosity there.
Yeah, beautiful. So you were sitting there like, were you nervous at all, or you just more curious and like excited?
Very quiet, and just curious and asking questions where I felt appropriate. And
cool.
Basically, it wasn't an intense interview when I come to think about it. Like, I interview way more intensely nowadays if I'm going to take on an apprentice. But what I learned is that apprentices came and went pretty quickly within that industry during that period of time. As in,
you were the one that stuck around while a whole bunch came and went?
Yeah. I think there was about 12 to 13 within the period of time that I trained.
And what's the training period? Is it a 3-year, 4-year, 10 years? Like, what's the...
No, back then it was supposed to be a year.
Yeah.
And my submissive training lasted 3 months, and then I cracked it.
Graduated.
And I cracked it and called it and went, no, I can't do this anymore. because I had 2 incidents that just set me off, and where my consent wasn't respected.
Yeah,
and hence
cool.
I'm so passionate about consent and talking about consent and respecting consent nowadays.
Yeah, beautiful. So that's been a theme that's come up. So you said that you learnt a whole bunch around consent during that period, during that submissive period.
Yeah.
And that's something that wasn't on the cards for you. Like at the time, you weren't even thinking that. That was like, all right, if you want this position, you're going to have to reverse the roles. If you.
Yeah, I had to learn what it was like to be a submissive first and learn how to receive.
And is that something that you employ as well? If you're taking people on, is that the way that you go about things, or?
There's a format of it, but not done with clients. Like I went straight into bookings and seeing clients as a submissive, as an untrained submissive, to learn to be a mistress, basically.
And what like do you recall from that 3-month period? What's the things that have stuck with you? Because you said it's become a big thing, consent, since then. So I'm sure some of those things have stuck with you.
Yeah. So what stuck with me the most is the fact that learning about my own limitations. Because at the age of 21, I had very little knowledge about or sexual experience or fetish experience. So actually finding what my own limitations were, I had an idea of a few things that were not okay to be done to me, but I didn't know a whole lot of other things. And
So can you give us an example? Care to go into depth?
Yeah, like my instant hard limit, and a hard limit is what we refer to as something that you're definitely not into. It's
a red light. It's not on the cards.
It's not on the cards. It's not negotiable at all. It is a hard limit. So my hard limits were any form of blood play or bloodletting.
Is that self or other, like inflicted to you or even witnessing it?
Inflicted onto myself as a submissive.
Yeah.
Been trained as a submissive. I didn't allow any body fluids on me, so no golden showers or pissing on me, no shitting on me, no Roman showers on me, type of thing. I also was no sex, so no penetration, no digital penetration, no oral on me or on my clients as well. So they were just, a few of my definitely hard limits at that stage.
Those are the ones that you knew about already? Those are the ones you walked in with?
Yeah, they're the ones I walked in, and it's very clear that they were non-negotiable.
And then you learnt a few more, did you, in that period?
Yeah, trial and error.
Don't know if you don't go.
Yeah, that's right. And so being really willing to learn and being someone who learns on the spectrum of witnessing and trying.
And there's I imagine there's some things for me, like I know that it's like, as I'm saying, you don't know if you don't go. There's some things I know I probably won't be into. Like I'm probably not going to be into injecting heroin, for instance. It's like, it's just something that I'm not willing to go there,
And drugs and alcohol were not allowed on our premises, so they were not involved. So that was really good to know. So everything had to come from, you had to be
from the cyberspace.
Yeah. But, and that was a house policy, which I really liked at the time. So, I really appreciated. But yes, things that I found out that I didn't like were quite surprising.
Things that you thought you might like, or?
It was the simple things that threw me, that triggered me into like spiraling downwards and out of control into tears. A simple action that I remember really clearly, and this was like 3 months into my apprenticeship, and the last submissive session I ever did in the house was by a really wonderful client, Master, and he was really great with me. But the fact is, he asked me to go on all fours. So on all fours, like a dog almost. So on my hands and on my knees, back straight. And then he asked me, and I was on a massage table, and he asked me to lower my head but spread my legs and just look through my legs into the mirror so I could see my own ass and groin in the mirror.
Mm.
And that action, simple action, which I was like, yeah, cool, I do that, yes, master, and put my head down, looked through my legs, saw my ass and my vulva in the mirror, and I lost it.
Lost it as in tears, like what happened?
Triggered into a space of uncontrollable tears.
Okay.
And shaking and
what was the emotions that were coming up?
Vulnerability, embarrassment, were the two that really surfaced during that period. And he was great, I have to say. He was fantastic, the way he handled the situation and comforted me during that process. The session was stopped and we just sat there and he let me have my moment, and when I was ready we discussed what was actually happening and what the process was from there, which I declined to go on any further with the session. But yeah, so that was
a great experience for you, that way that he handled it. Like you could imagine that somebody who, like, I don't know what his experience was, but could, like, that's the right way to do it, and what's the different way that it could have fucked you up or traumatized you, or what's the wrong way to go about a similar situation?
Okay, so prior to that session, a few weeks before, I'd had another submissive session where I'd gone in to see, he was an older German gentleman that would visit the house regularly. He wanted a corporal punishment session. So corporal punishment, for those people who don't know, is a session where he's disciplining me with his hand or a ruler or a paddle or a strap or a whip on my bare backside or back, which I negotiated to what level I wanted to go or what level I was willing to go with him. And all the sessions we had were pre-negotiated, which I'll talk more about later. So we had sat down, negotiated where my limits were, what I was happy to do, what I was happy not to do. Walked into the session. He ended up putting me in extreme heels on a slate floor. Slate floors are hard and they're slippery. He ended up tying my wrists to the bondage bench, but he tied it in a way where the angle of the bench, the 90-degree angle, was pushing on here, on that section, with my legs spread wide apart, which was slipping on the slate. So his kink was obviously seeing me in a awkward position that was going to be testing to me. And then he proceeded to discipline me with implements and without a warm-up, which wasn't negotiated. And being as egotistical and fiery as what I am or was back then, and not much sense or experience, I took it. And I managed to get through that particular part of the session, but I could feel my buttons being pushed and my boundaries really being pushed, and I could feel myself bubbling to the surface, and I could feel that tension building where I was getting close to my own limit. And within that, I could feel my own personality getting quite nasty towards him. My temperament changed from being this sweet, submissive, yes, master, to more like go and fuck yourself attitude. And he could see that I was under duress with the restraints, so he released me, and then he was like, now you can suck my cock. And I just looked at him and said, you can go and fuck yourself. That's not happening. And during that process, I had actually called my safety words a few times, and he had ignored my safety words. And the person that was looking after me was supposed to be sitting outside the door listening to the session. They weren't. They were on the phone in the office. They weren't hearing me saying mercy master, which was our safety word back then.
Yeah.
And the safety word is the word that you negotiate to use to say stop.
So that means cut the whatever role play or whatever scene you've set.
Yeah. I've hit a limit. Mercy master, can we please stop? And he ignored that. And so when he did untie me, he said, now you can suck my cock. Yeah, I basically told him to go and get fucked and he could suck his own cock. And stormed out of the room. And that's when I realised my mentor.
That's a traumatizing experience. That's like the wrong way to do it. That's the illustration of.
Oh. Yeah, he had his skill level of appreciating what we would say in normal society or day-to-day society, no, which mercy meant no, or to finish, he was not respecting that at all. Yeah, a negotiated safety word.
And so I'm just thinking about that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that negotiation process? So beforehand, what happens with the, like, is it a meeting where you're sitting down with someone? Is it on the phone? Like, yeah, like what's that process look like?
Back then or nowadays?
Both. So tell us back then and then how it's evolved. And I imagine you may have created your own kind of processes.
I have indeed. When you work for a house, you have very little control over who walks in the front door or who's booking you, because there's usually a reception handling that type of scenario. And if the reception doesn't know who you are and what your limitations and that are, then they'll just invite whoever they feel is suitable to come in when the person rings up to make an appointment or an inquiry. So within the house environment back then, 23, 24 years ago, what used to happen was they used to either call and make an appointment and come in, or they'd rock up on the front door unannounced and knock on it and get let in. So once they arrived at the door, if they hadn't booked for a particular person, then we would all go in and meet that client. If you were a mistress or a submissive or a switch. The switch is someone that mistresses and submits within one session. And so we'd go in and would sit down and do an introduction. We would ask the client what they were into, and then we would talk about if it was something that we were into as well. For example, the German client was into discipline, impact play, discipline, actions to do with role playing, and bondage. So he was like a submissive that was into that.
And that was a fit for you. You put your hand up for that one.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'll try this out, because I knew he was also a house regular as well. So not feeling like of course they were house regulars, I automatically assumed
they'd be invited back. Yeah, you'd imagine
that they would be trained or to listen to your safety words. And that was one of the biggest learning lessons I learned in that process.
As in, just because they're regulars doesn't mean that their level is going to be. Yeah. Completely. So you've put your hand up, and then you have a meeting again, or is it then it's straight into whatever it is?
Back then, it usually straight into a session. So they would prep themselves with a shower or whatever they needed pre-session, and then they would come in and start the session, or we would come in and start the session for whatever time frame that we had negotiated. And then that session was brought to an end, and they would have another shower or get dressed and leave. Yeah. Nowadays that I work for myself.
And how long has that been, by the way? How long have you been working for yourself?
I've been working for myself since 2001.
Cool. A long time.
Yeah. But I started working for myself when I moved to London in 2001 and became independent.
And did you change a few things? Obviously, you would have had a wealth of knowledge of the previous 6 years or whatever it was. And then, what were some of the things that you changed?
By that stage, I had fine-tuned what I was personally into and what my own limitations were. Of course, they evolve as well as we grow and and expand in ourselves, or close down, one or the other. They change. So my process became, I was handling my own calls or my own inquiries, but I was also advertising myself. So I got to advertise how I want to be perceived, and specialising in what I enjoyed doing.
Yeah, so I'm just going to just go deeper into that, because I imagine that time, like 2001, what we have Netscape, maybe Google is even a thing back then. I didn't even know. Yeah. And yeah, so where are you advertising, and what specific mindset are you approaching your advertisements with, or is it all word of mouth? Like, yeah, how are you going about that process?
London, as an independent, our only form of advertising was through standard size magazines, glossy magazines, with a few different publishing companies. One was called DDI, which is from America, that published 4 times a year, and another one was called Serious Mistress, which published 2 times a year. And that was my first experience of actually being published as well. I'd been published in Clio prior to that, but advertising, publishing. And so clients would see your photo, check out who you were, whatever wording you put in or copyright, and then rang your phone number, and talked to you further, or emailed you, because we had email. We didn't really have websites until about a year or so later.
Yeah. So that's just the home phone, like mobile phones. That's like
mobile phones. We had mobile phones.
Yeah.
I'm
trying to remember.
Yeah. No text, though. No text. Another form in London was people would advertise in the phone booths with postcards.
Yeah, cool.
That they would have put in the phone booths 2-3 times a day, because they would come out and clean them out, and then they'd go back. Someone would come and clean out the phone booths.
And then those red phone booths, the London ones.
Yeah.
Too cute.
Ones, yeah.
So what was your mindset with those publications and with your advertising? Were you more like focused on word of mouth, and like where was your focus in terms of like creating business and getting clients?
I think I aimed, because I was Australian, in the UK, and Australian mistresses back then had a really amazing reputation of being well trained, because we were one of the only countries, one of the 2 only countries in the world that actually trained their mistresses. That had
what was the other country?
Germany.
Yeah, cool.
At the time, and some of the maybe 1 or 2 of the other European countries close to Germany had that. That all the mistresses in the UK were self-taught, or had been taken under the wing by another mistress at one stage and taught that way, but there was no official training. There's still no official training within our industry. But yeah, Australians had a really good reputation of being trained well compared to the English.
So that was your angle, that was your selling point.
Yeah, that was my selling point.
Yeah, cool.
Australian Dominatrix in London, and I was 27 at the time, and I was slender but curvaceous, and long dark hair, and big boobs, skinny waist, big ass.
It's like perfect dominatrix.
And so and I looked like Betty Page, so I had the straight fringe, the dark long hair, and the green eyes, and the red lips, and thigh-high boots that were red that came all the way up to my crutch, and a red corset that just sucked me right in. And Amazing. And so I really played, I think back then I played on what my physical looks were rather than what my skill share is. And nowadays I advertise myself more for my skill shares than my physical looks.
And is there a particular, anything you learned with the advertising? Like, because I'm just imagining people who are working, whether it's doing massage work or doing sex industry work, whatever it is, and have to advertise. Are there any things that you've learned or picked up along the way that are important in terms of how you present yourself?
Be very clear with yourself and what you're willing to offer.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing I learned. And in BDSM as well, it like in bondage and discipline, fantasy, fetish, role play scenarios, there is a lot involved. So not trying to be and do everything like I was trained to do in-house. As an independent, I could choose what I enjoyed and specialize in that. Like, for instance, one of my fortes that I really love doing is Corporal Punishment. So the cane. The cane is my favorite implement. And it took me 6 years to pick up a cane. And it wasn't until I moved to London that I really perfected the art of caning someone and understood and learned how to understand what the procedure was with that. Mindset, actions, a whole lot.
Can you go deeper into that, or do you want to finish your point first and then we'll come back to it?
Yeah, and then my other one is bondage. Like, I love tying people up. I love that process, the artistic process of binding someone either subtly and simply by just limbs in like a spread eagle pose, standing or laying, or full mummification encasement in cling film or leather or latex or body bags. And when I moved to London, the London scene is so well established compared to the Australian scene. So specialty equipment was just like, oh my goodness, it's like a kid in a candy store, an adult candy store.
Unbreakable cling wrap. Yes.
So I had a field day of just buying lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of stock. And learn. I had to learn a lot of that on the job because there was no one in Australia that played at that level that I was learning to play with in the UK. Or seek out people that played at that level. Like, one of my specialties of bondage is latex now, wrapping people, cocooning people in latex and layering of latex. So I actually went and lived in Germany in a gumi house, like a latex house, bondage house, for a few weeks or months actually, and learnt the process of playing with latex and layering people in it and placing people in it, and the whole cocooning effect and the rebirthing and the breathing that happens and the hypnosis effect it has on people and the meditative state people get in and playing with it.
Really dropping them into that nurturing kind of cocoon and changes their brainwaves, I imagine.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I loved about the bondage and the sensory deprivation scenarios that I would do. Like, I'd do anything up to overnight sessions, anything from an hour to a few hours to overnight, was the nurturing aspect, but the creativity of it, but also watching my clients surrender to that moment and get lost in their own meditative state. But to take someone to that level, there's got to be a lot of negotiation.
100%. So that was like your thing was like ensuring that you're specializing rather than trying to do it all and being like, I can do anything. No, this is what I love doing. This is what I'm going to do. And you make that clear, kind of thing. Yeah, cool. And talk to us a bit deeper about the negotiation again. I'm sure we can go in depth with this.
So we refer to it as consultation or negotiation. It happens at first point of contact. Either that contact is nowadays text, phone, email. That's when the negotiation starts. The prospective client states what they're into. They've probably come to, majority of them, I can't say all of them, but majority have come to me because they've seen my ads, and my ads are very detailed. That's one thing I've learned over the years, is that I give them the information that I want them to know to be able to proceed with making a smooth flowing interaction with me into a session.
So you already have in mind what you want the sessions to look like and how you want them to go, and then you sort of work backwards on what's the best way to get there.
Yeah. So my bondage ads talk about the flavour of my sessions, what I enjoy, what I'm offering, how they can when I'm available, how they can contact me, the process that they must go to contact me. So they must give me a name. That doesn't have to be their real name. A name, their experience or lack of experience, what their interests are, what they like to explore, a bit of a background on who they are, if they have seen someone in the past or they haven't, down to the point of then making, suggesting for how long they like to session with me and what date. And then I'll respond with, granted, you're granted that session, blah, 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 and take it from there. Or, I'm sorry, I don't feel I'm a suitable subject or a suitable mistress for your what you're requiring. However, this person may be able to help you.
So it's a bit of you ensure that your copy is almost like a filtering and a screening process.
Definitely.
So for the kind of people that you love to work with, and also the kind of experiences that you personally enjoy.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is even though this is a career for me, it's my job. It's also a passion. And that's what drives me as well, to be self-employed, to be a sole trader, and to have that money flowing in to keep me in the lifestyle that I'm accustomed to and want to live in, is enjoying what I do and respecting my own boundaries on the way.
And is that often, I'm just imagining, is it often successful? Is like the success rate of it flowing exactly how you want it, is it quite high, or are there some that slip through the cracks? Or
occasionally some slip through the cracks. Occasionally, the majority of my sessions I've come to a point where I'm pretty fine-tuned. And so when it comes to people contacting me for sessions, they're pretty well informed.
And is that number that, you know, the amount that have slipped through the cracks becomes less and less and less with experience? So I imagine maybe in the beginning it wasn't so much, like more experiences that you didn't quite want to create happened, or?
Yeah, as I said, trial and error.
And so people can kind of avoid that by just being stringent and asking themselves what exactly they want and being super duper clear, right?
Yep, tapping into their own
consent, what their own level of okayness with certain particular things are. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I learned being a submissive, and one of the most valuable lessons I learned being in that environment, was learning what my own limitations were, but also what I enjoyed and what was negotiable, what I was maybe prepared to do with the right person.
So that's like, a kind of a point as well. Is there for people who, you know, have no experience, or a little bit, you know, people might have played in bedroom with a little bit of this stuff but don't have much idea, like what's the drive for not just you but also that you've seen around you, like the clients you work with and other people in the scene, what's the drive to, you know, play with these kind of different I can't think of the right word, but different dynamics, I guess is the right word, you know, that you're playing in, you know, what's the urge, what's so exciting about it? You know, people, it's like this taboo kind of stuff, but then you explore it and it's like, oh wow, there's things that I didn't even know I liked, or things that I didn't know I didn't like, or, you know, this kind of self-exploration. Is that something that excites you, or are there other aspects that really drive you to continue with the work?
Okay, there's a lot in that question.
Essentially, what drives you and the others in the scene, and what are some things that maybe surprised you that you did like, or, you know?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it's having someone place their trust into me to be able to take them on a journey, and watching them surrender to that moment, submit to it and obey me. Like, I like being obeyed. Got me bigger. So that's a really heartfelt moment for me. That's my pinnacle. Like when I witness, I subject. And I'm saying subject because I don't only work with men, I work with a plethora of different genders, age group, backgrounds, nationalities, and everything. So my subjects, just having them come to me or choose me and me grant them that time to spend with me and going on that journey with them, which sounds like hippie type of thing, but the realistic is my style, and I'm going to really say that again, my style, because we all have our different styles and what we specialize in, is all about the sensuality of the domination and the intensity. So I like to work closely with people, and to do that I need to get into their mind space. I need to get into where they're at, where they've been, where they want to go. I need to find out about their core erotic theme, what makes them tick, what gets them to that, what point is it that they're really wanting to reach, and planning theme that is going to get them there, but also making sure that we're compatible. All done through communication. That's what consent's about, is communication.
So that's the one that does it for you and keeps you, because it's like this infinite amount of dynamics that you can explore with every particular makeup of a different human that you come into contact with, right?
Exactly, and everyone's different in what their core erotic themes are, or what gets them off, or what they feel like is going to get them off, or the journey they want to go on at the time. So I get bored really easy. So putting me in a 9-to-5 job behind a desk or doing the same thing over and over again will send me fucking...
Can relate.
Yeah, so and being a mechanical minded person, being also a creator, this really fulfills my own needs of setting scenes, creating scenes, and being creative with the scenes, but having that connection with someone that's on a level than just penetration or sex relate, like we're going to have to be careful with my words here.
Why is that? Why is that?
So I know this is going live, that's why. But being, for me, sex is great with the person that I have chosen to have that with, but when I'm opening myself up to session with strangers, that connection that I get with that stranger is priceless for me, and them trusting me, and me trusting them that they're going to trust themselves to go somewhere.
100%.
That I just cherish, really cherish, and what's kept me in this job for so long.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And do you see yourself hanging the leather boots up one day?
I've tried to 5 or 6 times.
Can't do it.
No. I'm deeply embedded with a pathway that requires me to physically hurt people.
And that's something that people enjoy.
Yeah.
Going into a little bit of that as well, like obviously without betraying anyone's confidence, can you share some of the stuff that you get up to in private room?
In my professional privacy? Gladly. As I said, I specialise in corporal punishment, or as we term the terminology nowadays, impact play.
Okay.
Corporal punishment stemmed from usually school punishments. So corporal meaning and punishment meaning being disciplined for an action or a misdemeanor, which, as I said, originally stemmed from school, but other forms of, we can go back in history quite a lot of corporal punishment formats of whipping convicts and disciplining slaves, school children, the governoress or the governor disciplining people, to the masters of the household bringing their slaves into line and so forth. So that type of play is actually dying out, because that generation that was embedded into, because of their upbringing, are slowly dying out. So nowadays we call it impact play. So it's more about taking the discipline reaction away and using it as more as an enjoyment and the sensation of enjoying the sensation of the impact.
So more the physical sensation as opposed to the mental story behind it all.
Yeah. So when I was in London, the English love being caned. They love being disciplined. So I would often do school scenarios or role play scenarios where I was the head teacher, and they were my student, and they'd come to me to be disciplined. And so I would cane them, 6 or 12 of the best or whatever. And sometimes this was done in a disciplinary action where there was no warm-up. So a cane stroke, a cane stroke on a cold bottom. Could you imagine how that would feel?
Yes.
Yeah. So the pain.
In England too. England will be cold a lot of the time. Yeah.
So the impact of that cane onto a bare bottom that hadn't been warmed up in a cooler weather is going to cut quite deep into the skin, into the psyche for one, but also the physical body. And the physical reaction of that is one of jolting and usually gasping, and sometimes a little bit of screaming or a yelp from the person receiving it. So torture pain can be inflicted in all sorts of ways. But the cane was one of the ways I enjoyed it. And the caning someone can be quite hypnotic after a while as well. Is
that after warm-ups or?
I ended up specialising in central caning in the end. Like my specialty is central caning and taking people to 100 strokes.
Okay, so describe what's involved in that.
So that involves the sensual side of things is a bit of body contact between me and that person, so warming up the area that I'm disciplining, the backside mainly. With usually starting off with some form of spanking on the backside, getting the blood to the surface.
Some form of spanking. I'm just gonna go deep into this. So, are there particular technique used to spank? Is there like a?
Oh gosh, come to my workshop in February and I'll teach you all about it. I did someone in Melbourne actually.
Yeah, beautiful. The reason I ask is because we have a lot of listeners, people who not necessarily are watching this as well, but just because I love to leave the people with some practical stuff they can actually take away with them, so.
Okay, so spanking. So spanking is the action where your hand hits the body surface of either yourself or another person. So if you're spanking, say, another person, then you're with your hand hitting their surface and making that type of sound. The surface that we usually spank is the backside. And the backside. A
particular part of.
Yeah, that comes down to taste. That really comes down to taste. So the backside is best spanked when it's a bit rounded, like on an angle or protrude up, rather than flat. Because usually when the backside's flat, the backside's a bit wobbly, so you need the skin to be quite taut. And just I usually start off with my fingers and just tapping the area. Yeah, just tapping the area to get the blood to the surface first. And that's the whole point of impact play, is to get the blood to the surface and focusing for some people, because everyone experiences things differently, is get the blood to the surface so you don't impact as much bruising. Whereas if I went straight into hitting someone with a full hand, flat hand, and just went whack, then that impact, because it hasn't been warmed up on a cold surface, will bring instant blood to the surface, but it would also mainly bruise the surface as well.
And is there, during that, like if you're doing that, are you any like words that you're saying, or is it particular for the person, whatever they want to, whatever
it's
they
all catered to the individual.
Yeah, cool. And that's all comes in the negotiations and painting the picture of creating the scene, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah, cool. And that's you said the art of caning. That was something that you what was the difference between being scared to pick it up and then what changed to go, actually I'm gonna try this, and then not only try it but become a master at it?
Mistress, please. Mistress.
Mistress.
There's a caning for that one. It comes down to the quality of the canes. Like Australia back then had Australia didn't have quality canes. They had really shitty bamboo, what we call rattan canes.
Is that because then we don't play polo over here, or?
I just don't think there were any specialty cane makers in the country at the time. Whereas when I got to the UK, it is something that they specialise in. It is, so you have people that make their canes, and they have a variety of different bamboo, because a cane is made out of bamboo, basically. And so here in Australia, we can only get what's called rattan. Rattan is it like just a lower grade? Yeah, it's not of high quality. However, in the UK, you can get Kaboo, you can get Dragon, you can get all sorts of styles of canes. And the way that they actually treat the cane and make the canes and treat them to the point of filing down the notches on the cane and the ends of the cane, and that sort of, and what they lacquer the cane or oil the cane with, is then how it is used, or what's the word? The result of how it is felt.
Yes, it changes the texture and changes what the experience is of the impact of it.
I mean, you're talking to someone that's got over 100 cane in a collection. You know?
So a cane is a crop, or is that different?
No, totally different.
Yeah. And a paddle and what are the different things? What are the different things you have? I imagine you have like these torture rack of.
Going off topic. That's great. So cane is bamboo, a piece of rattan. Used to be used in school as a discipline thing, and usually had a crook handle. And the cane would be used on the backside or over the knuckles or on the bare hands, which is not a suitable idea to use with the cane anyway. The tawse is more suited, or a strap's more suited for that type of stuff. But yeah, the cane is usually quite a thin, long rod made of bamboo.
It's flat?
No, it's round.
Okay, so it's cylindrical. And
has flexibility in it. So often you'll see the pro-doms in their pictures bending the cane, looking seriously type of thing, or swishing it. And it's got this wonderful noise when you swish it through the air. And then when it hits the skin, it's even more wonderful. Like I call it the kiss of the cane on the skin. It's like type of noise. So the riding crop is an extension of the cane that has a leather tongue on the end, and that leather tongue, when used on the skin, because depending on the size of the leather tongue, the length and the thickness of it depends on how it will impact and what sensation it will give.
And yes, it sounds like fun. It definitely sounds like fun.
Have you ever been spanked before, Zulu?
Yes, I have. I enjoy it. I personally enjoy it. Yeah.
What do you get out of it? Now let's change this interviewer.
What do I enjoy about it? Like probably the sensation, mostly like the different sensation. I enjoy adrenaline. I enjoy the adrenaline that gets released. So yeah, just I enjoy exploring different states of mind.
Yeah.
So that's something that I really enjoy, is like, I imagine the mind as this kind of sphere, and that if I explore and I reach this new experience of, or new state of consciousness that I've never experienced before, I feel like my consciousness is expanding. So I feel like I'm learning new neural pathways and I'm actually expanding my consciousness. So it's probably my favorite thing about new experiences and these types of things.
So taking you back to the first time you were spanked for pleasure on a consensual level, can you remember the feeling? Can you describe the sensations that you experienced then? Could you give us some wording around where the sensation was? Was it isolated on your backside? Did it blow up your spine? Did it expand out from your core into your whole body? There at all?
It probably started localized and then started localized and then expanded more like a how would you call this? I call it chicken skin. So it's sort of like, you know, the tingles over the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Was there a warmth involved?
A stinging, more like, you know, it's just more of a burn than a warmth. So hot more than warm.
And did that last for a while with you after the spanking had finished?
Yes. Then it cooled down to a warmth afterwards. Yeah.
And did it bruise you?
No.
Were you tender?
Yes.
For how long?
Yeah, a day or two. Yeah, not too long. Yeah.
Was there a particular part of your bottom that you enjoyed being spanked more than the other? Was it like high spanking, mid spanking, low, where that little line is, thighs?
Thighs, probably best.
You like your thighs being spanked, or below, just below
Like,
that ridge, that line? Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And see, this is how negotiation goes. So did you get an idea of
100%? Yeah.
getting a feel into? And this is part of also how negotiation and consent works, is that I ask these questions to someone and that person gives me the answers. So then I can start forming a list in my head on what this person enjoys and how I can get that person to that space of desired space, what this person doesn't enjoy. So that goes on to
The no-go zone list.
Yeah, or the maybe list. Yeah.
The orange list.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for,
Sorry.
I was going to say for you, like, because sorry, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
I was just about to seg into, because this is so normal for you, 24 years of living, you know, this every single day. And then, you know, we were talking about a lot of the reason why we're here today is, you know, through the post I made about a friend of mine having an experience where she was violated and wasn't respected. Her consent wasn't given, and it was totally disrespected by a man. And I ended up on the phone with her. She ended up ringing me because she felt so unsafe in her own space. And, you know, I had to post about it because, like, if she didn't call me and I didn't get a hold of her, then who knows what could have happened in that situation. And then, you know, we connected over that. So, and you mentioned that, you know, this is such a normal for you, this consent work and reaching levels of communication where we recognize what is okay and what is not okay, what is yes, what is no, what is maybe. It's so normal for you. But then when you enter the world, what's the difference like for you, and how do you navigate that?
Carefully. With awareness that my level of education around sexuality and consent, or consent in general, is way beyond the majority of the people that I associate or meet.
Your education and just your immersion in it, I guess, as well. Yeah.
Yes, and my everyday practice in it. So I step in the world more or less as someone who is open to guiding people. I want to say guiding rather than teaching. When I do come across people who I find are pushing my barriers in one way, or I witness their behaviour that I feel is not suitable.
I love the choice of words.
Then I will step in or call in and address that subject with them in a mannerism that, attempting not to be offensive, but rather friendly around it.
So like a warm kind of
gesture of saying, hey dude, not a right way to go about doing that, or have you considered maybe using the word please or may I rather than can I or I want. Give me this, or just a physical action. If I'm out and about in, say, a bar or a club, and I'm going to use the word straight. Actually, I'll use the word mainstream rather than straight. Mainstream meaning of my definition of mainstream, just a bar, one of the city bars or a high street bar, or something that's just there for the general public to enjoy rather than a fetish event. That's where, or a club, that's where I find it most testing, because of the physical aspects of people being very close to my space. So the contact that often happens, or the attempt to pick up lines that some people find quite amusing, which I find sometimes quite in my ears. And I will often just say, thank you, but do you realise that that can be taken as taken the wrong way? That could actually be taken as or have you thought about how that impacts me with you saying that? Sometimes I refer it back to them.
Just get a bit more like turn the self-awareness on.
Yeah.
And for you, what do you appreciate it like? So if someone's going to approach you, or they are going to enter your space, or like the interactions that you enjoy, what are the kind of ways that you respect and enjoy and are suitable?
Yeah, I demonstrate. It's like a mirroring effect. So I will demonstrate with my actions on
Lead.
how I enjoyed being approached or that. So if I come up to you and go, hey Sulu, how you going? Would you like a hug? Rather than just going and hugging you. So then I give you the opportunity to say, that would be great, Electra, I'd love to have a hug from you. Or, yeah, not today.
Or not right now. Or
yeah, no, sorry, not feeling into being physical or whatever. But you don't need to justify that to me either. Just like, no, it's okay today. And I'm like, okay, cool. And not me taking offense to it, and not turning away and storming off in a fit, or taking it personally.
Yeah.
It's just like appreciating that you're not in the frame of mind at the time to give a hug, maybe just particularly to me or whoever, and accepting that, and then just going to flow from there. So rather than demanding, why don't you want to hug me, Sulu? What have I done to you? Type of thing.
Do I smell funny?
And just appreciating your answer and respecting it and acting on it in a mannerism that's I just want to touch the heart. There's not a word for it. Just touching my heart in a mannerism that's open and not offensive to either of us. An explanation. I mean, one of the things I wrote into response to your post about your friend was that a no is a no, a maybe is a no, and anything else but a yes is a no. And it doesn't deserve and doesn't require justification. And I feel like that's something, and that's something that I've learned in my somatic sexology training over the years, and learning to accept.
You've just opened up a whole new kettle of worms there. Kettle of worms.
Learning to accept that, or not learning, but not only learning to accept, but learning to understand that. Then I've learned how to accept that and how to then act on it.
On your own nose, you mean?
Yeah. And on anyone's nose.
So on anyone's, anything other than a yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if it's a yes, then flowing with negotiation to organize and to flow with consent. Yeah. And negotiating. Negotiating. I'm just going to leave it at negotiating.
And so the interactions that, even more energetically, I'm imagining, so if you're like in a state where you're like receptive, open, and your body language is, that will state that, or it's like maybe you're kind of stuck in your head, or you're out and about and not really feeling comfortable, but maybe you're still open, even though your body language is not on. You might be like, oh, actually, I really appreciated someone going, hey, what's happening? Would you like to talk? Or, hey, my name's this, what's your name? And sparking up a conversation. Is that like, where's the line of like this energetic kind of boundary, or, you know, for you?
For me, if a stranger came up and said, hey, how you going? What are you up to, type of thing. If I was looking a bit down and rowdy, I would just say, I'd feel into the moment of the situation personally. Everything, it all comes down to, okay, consent, negotiation of consent has changed dramatically from, I'm assuming that we're similar age group. Maybe you might be a bit younger than me.
I'm a baby.
You're a baby?
I'm a baby. I'm born in 85.
Okay. So there's over a decade between us. It's similar generations where consent was only needed to be given once, and that consent, we've come from a generation where consent was either given once, and that sort of entitled us to move in and always have that consent with that person or situation. Whereas now, this generation that's coming up, consent is required.
Every step of the way.
Yeah, every step of the way. And that's something that I've had to adopt from where I was, and that's something I've chosen to adopt as well because of the nature of my of what I do for work, but also the circles and my tribes that I associate with or hang with. That's what the current theme around consent is, so keeping myself up to date. So to answer your original question, I would have to feel into the moment of where I was and how I felt about that person, and the energy I felt of that person, if I could feel open enough or trusting enough to invite them in. And to discuss things with me, or I would just smile and say thank you, that I'm okay. Yeah. So
is there, in hearing you say that, I imagine there's like particular things again that you like, that you look and you feel into yourself, how am I feeling, what do I feel this person's intent is, and is it something that you'd name, or you'd call out, hey, what's your intent, why do you want to talk to me, or what would be like a way to fulfill your own needs and to honor your own needs and wherever you're at that moment?
I would honor myself first and foremost upon someone else, because it's my consent that it's important in the situation to not be violated. So tapping into myself, and this has come from years and years and years of practice. It's not an easy thing to adopt in your day-to-day life, but again, it's something I've learned through Tantra, and I've learnt through somatic sexology work, and I've learnt through working with Betty Martin with the Will of Consent. And that's actually, instead of acting just from my groin or my heart or my gut or my head, it's actually taking a moment, stopping, grounding myself with a breath, feeling in to all my layers and my levels, and seeing if they're all actually saying yes to me, or if one's blocked, or if one is stuck, or if one's actually screaming no at me or whatever, listening to my own body and what it's flowing with. And if it's all saying yes, then I will continue and welcome that person to then share an experience with me of a conversation or whatever that may be. However, if I am personally feeling a reaction happening somewhere in my body, then I know that that is a no.
So even if it's 3 out of 4, it's still a no. That's like is that a lesson you've learned? Like if 3 out of 4, it's like you say yes anyway, like the situation fucks you, or?
Yeah, it's like a no, because it's a maybe, so it's a no. Yeah.
So maybe is always no for you, but some people maybe is a yes, or what have you found?
Maybe is always a no in my training.
With yourself, I mean, imagine some people like, I don't know if it's a full yes, but I might like to try it out. I don't know until I try it. Like, is that something that is true for some people?
Prior to doing my training, I was on that train of thought, but knowing and understanding that the maybe equals a no.
For you and for most people, that sort seems to be the general consensus.
That's the flow I go with now, and that's the flow I teach.
Yeah, cool.
It's like, listen to that maybe, because that maybe is then there's a hesitation there. And the old saying, gut instinct, or follow your heart, listen to your head, type of thing. If you're going to just act from one of those parts or not another, then you're disrespecting your whole self.
And is it going to, those parts, are you going to be communicating particular things? So is it going to be like, maybe I haven't had enough rest, or maybe I'm not, my mind's on the wrong thing? Like, are there shifts you can make until it becomes a green light or becomes a yes?
And sometimes if you get a maybe, you can sit there and just, and again, this takes time and practice and skill, is go, okay, my head's saying yes, my throat's saying yes, my heart's saying yes, my stomach's queasy, my groin's excited. Okay, so let's go to my stomach, because everything else seems to be flowing. Let's tap into my stomach and feel into it. Feel into the sensations, because I work on sensations, so it's recognizing your own learning ability or your own ability to tune into yourself. So queasy tummy, so the sensation of that, how is that queasiness? Is it making me want to throw up? Is it queasiness of excitement? Is it a queasiness of knots and that, and establishing what that queasiness is to me? Is there an emotion involved? What type of emotion am I holding onto in my stomach, because it's my powerhouse type of thing? And just analysing it within myself quickly. And if I can then determine that, okay, it's this, let's breathe through and see how I feel about it. I'll let it go a few times and just do that action. And then feel into it again. And if it's still queasy, then it's definitely a no. But if it's relaxed and it's singing yes, then that's maybe all it needed. It's just tuning into your whole self rather than acting from a particular
urges and chemicals that are being released. And
it's tuning into your Sometimes some of this stuff's a bit difficult to talk about. There's so many different modalities of learning.
I understand.
That when you all look at it all together, it's all the same, but just different languages.
Yeah, 100%. And then
it
is helpful. It is valuable, what you're sharing, 100%. And I imagine that I come across a lot of people, and I've asked this question a lot to a lot of my friends, a lot of people on the podcast, but the story I often hear is that not me personally, but just this story is, I struggle setting boundaries, or I struggle setting strong boundaries, or I don't know what my boundaries are, or I say yes when I really want to say no, or I don't know how to say no, I struggle to say no, or this story comes up a lot. So what do you have experience with this, with helping others to set strong boundaries, and what does that look like? Is there processes, is there mindsets that you can share around that?
As we discussed, is looking at your own relationship with the word no. I strongly feel about this, actually, is as if each individual person in this world stopped and examined their own relationship around the word no, and learn what their own pathways are that they've learned around the word no, by saying it, by hearing about it, by acting on it, and everything else that goes with that. I feel we could possibly plant the seed of establishing a world where no will start to be respected. All too soon we blame others for actions, and yeah, rightly so most of the time, but when you don't have a grip on that word yourself, on how you use it and act on it, then how do you expect others to respect it when you're using it?
As if you don't quite understand what it means fully.
To yourself, yeah. And this again is something that I've had to learn. It's not something I've had to break old patterns that I've been raised by childhood around the word no. And this is an example where if you just sit back and monitor people with children, and when the child says no, watch what the action of that adult or person around that child is doing. Are they respecting that word no when that child uses it? If they're not, then that child's going to be inbred that word no is never going to be respected. So therefore that child's never going to trust that word no or know how to use it in a proper form, or in a form that's going to be they feel comfortable using, or hearing or acting upon. That's not as necessary as, and this is one thing that from your post that really got me thinking about the word no, because there was a whole lot of things leading up to this. And it was me sitting back and witnessing people around me with the word no, and particularly children. And I was just like, and ever since I started doing all the emotional clearing and understanding the patterning that happens within the body from childhood up, and literally seeing those layers being embedded into that child around the word no, that I realised, fuck, we need to accept responsibility for that word ourselves. We need to really just stop where we are and go, what is my relationship to word no? How do I hear no? Do I hear no as a yes? Do I hear no as a no? How am I able to say the word no? Not many people can say the word no. If I can say the word no, can I say it from a place that is strong and heard? No. Or no. Do I feel vulnerable saying the word no? Do I feel powerful saying the word no? When I hear someone saying the word no, do I want a justification of them? But why? And what gives me the entitlement to fucking ask for a justification in the first place? No, right? That person said no. I don't deserve or entitled to an explanation of why that person has said no. Why should I get an explanation?
Even if you are, because I said so, I am the parent, I am the boss, whatever it might be, whatever the dynamic might be.
Yeah, so that's where it gets tricky as parents, because and this is hard for me because I'm not a parent. So I feel like I have no right to step in and dictate or suggest, but I can.
Well, you are a child.
I am a child, and I have been a child. Yeah.
No, then you are somebody's child. I meant not a child.
Yeah, I am someone's child. But yeah, I just really feel strongly that we need to each individually examine our own relationship with the word no and build from there. And if you're finding yourself struggling saying, embracing, hearing, acting on the word no, or not acting on the word no, as it may be, then seeking alternative ways to learn how.
Such as?
To establish that relationship, a healthy relationship with the word no.
Give us some examples of some alternative.
My form, as I said, has been through somatic sexology. It's been through...
Talk to us about that. What is somatic sexology? I've heard this term. I'm sure people are wondering, what is she on about?
I think Google's your friend with this one because it's information. However, there's a therapist out there who specialise in talking about sex and sex therapy and that, and they're usually defined as sexologists.
Okay.
Put the somatic word in front of it, which means hands-on, body, means that I'm trained to work with people physically on a body-to-body level, as well as therapy level, where my training in somatic sexology is working with being touch. I can actually physically, I'm trained to touch people on that level of therapy rather than sitting back and doing talk.
Yeah, and that's helped you with your exploration of your no, yourself and others as well.
So somatic sexologists have been trained in exercises around using the word no, hearing the word no, acting or not acting on the word no.
Yeah.
Betty Martin, again, she's a US therapist, or a person from America who's a therapist. And if you type in Betty Martin's
She's
website,
still around?
Yep, she sure is. She's
I'll have to get a hold of her and see if I can get her on the podcast.
Yeah, love to, because her work was a light bulb moment for me, particularly around her will of consent and identifying your own touch and why you touch. If you're touching for yourself, you're touching for others, is your touch a giving touch? Is it a receiving touch? There's so much, again, language, so I'm probably not having correct terminology around this because I've got, as I said, so many different modalities of training happening in my head. But it was learning her will of consent originally in somatic sexology that was like bang.
Is she the one that came up with the wheel? Is it the give, take, allow, receive wheel? Is that this? Okay, yeah.
And understanding that will and your own touch first and foremost. It all comes back to yourself and understanding who you are and your own, what you've been taught with your beliefs and your actions and that, to then examine that, and then to, if you're not liking what you're feeling or seeing, then it's your responsibility to again take action on that, to learn a way that is more suitable to you and the current form of consent and so forth that's out there.
So just choosing making different decisions that actually give you fulfillment or actually feel good or make you happy or bring joy to yourself and your environment, and give you the kind of feedback that you look that is actually joyful rather than
sort of, because you have to also remember that we're a society that is evolving extremely quickly at the moment, and what is politically correct or acceptable one moment, i.e. all the Me Too stuff that's happened in the past few months and so forth, that is not acceptable in today's terms, and that's why people are being called out on it, even though it was 20 years ago or something like that, or a few years ago. So it's okay about feeling in and thinking, oh, that makes me feel good, but is it socially acceptable as well? It's like learning about what is socially acceptable nowadays. What is the,
And that's like that keeping on the curve thing you were mentioning, like where you've had to learn new ways of being as the times progress, right?
Yeah. And it's been, because I do socialize in many different tribes, fetish to the tantra, through to the healing, through to clubbing
and social. What's socially acceptable in one is entirely unacceptable in another.
Exactly. So learning the protocols, that's what we call it in the fetish scene, is learning the protocols of that scene that you're stepping into. I assist as an assistant in quite a few workshops, and it's also always what intrigues me the most when I'm stepping into these spaces as an assistant to these workshops is watching the different tribes come together and watching the negotiation that takes place as the workshop progresses. And I'm, again, carefully choosing my words. What I've witnessed over the years, and this is purely my own observation, is that people that come from the fetish scene that have been trained in protocol trainings and mannerisms, etiquette, are the ones in the workshop spaces that hold space quite well and are very respectful. And I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to be tortured for this. This is going to go live. But I find that people who come from the Tantra world are the ones that seem to get themselves in a bit of a pickle sometimes, particularly around touch without consent.
What do you mean by a pickle? As in, like, trip themselves up or something, or
themselves in a bit of trouble, or they end up learning very quickly that they're not free to touch anyone.
As in that, yeah. So is it like a bit more, how would you say, maybe immature, or they're learning as they go kind of thing, or they're a little less exposed to this kind of consent work, or what's the cause of that, do you feel?
I feel that the different stems of learning between the BDSM world and the Tantra world are completely different.
As in there's totally different protocols?
Yeah.
Or lack thereof?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's actually probably a really important piece of that's missing, you know, having these kind of protocols and having a really kind of pioneering movement around this, because that's something I hear often as well. The Tantra, the creepy Tantra teacher, whether woman, man, whatever gender it might be, you know, overcrossing boundaries, and also the other end of, I don't know the boundaries, so the line's grey, and all of this kind of stuff happens. So that because of, it sounds like just because of lack of protocols and culture around it, and conversation probably as well. Yeah. Like open conversation. You know, it's the kind of conversation people will natter about, but not necessarily talk about in the open.
There's been a lot of calling out recently, like this year in particular. There's been a lot of calling out on people's behaviours from both tribes. I mean, we've had a pretty big one happen in the Australian fetish scene. That's
what was. Do you care to share? Is it appropriate to share or not really?
Yeah. But this is what, and I know there's been one in the Tantra scene as well. Or a few, and I feel that's what this movement between those few instances, and the Me Too movement with in Hollywood and people on TV and that recently have really bring to the foresight about consent and what it actually means in today's world.
And they've highlighted, and what you've been involved or like watching both of those, like you've noticed them, at least you've been, you know, close enough to notice that they've happened. What have been the biggest takeaways for you that you've seen from those, from the whole witnessing or observation?
My biggest takeaway in the conversation I've had mostly with people, not publicly but in private, just to get a grip on how we can move on from all this, is that if you're willing to call out someone, then really consider about being willing to call them in to discuss finer details with a professional person involved. So you're not handling it one-on-one with that person who has violated your consent in one way or another, and actually seeking professional help of a mediator or someone who has the skill shares to be able to navigate the situation. Someone
has the skill set, the time and the energy and the willingness, I imagine, as well, yeah?
And of course, and the professional standards as well. Don't rely I mean, in the fetish industry, for instance, and maybe I'm talking out of school here, but the hierarchy of our scene was sort of felt like they were responsible to handle, like people felt that the hierarchy of the scene was responsible for handling some of the situations that have happened in the past. It's not.
When it wasn't the case at all.
And so my learning curve is this: if you're going to call someone out, then look at what your intent is for doing that. What's the flow-on effect of that's going to happen, how it's going to impact not only your life, but the person you're calling out and everyone else that's associated, so the roll-on effect of it. How much responsibility are you willing to take for that roll-on effect? And are you willing to call in and seek professional help rather than relying on your tribe, the hierarchy of the tribe, to deal with it? Your friends or whatever.
And does that involve, like, does that include law enforcement, or, you know, if things have happened and
violation can happen so violation can happen from innocence, mistakes, deliberate, like there is lots of way that violation can happen with consent. And the actions that you take from there need to be navigated suitably
appropriately for each particular, however it was.
There's no straight answer to that. Yeah.
And are there professionals who love this stuff that you know of, that put their hand up and go, that's me, I'd love to jump in on this and really be that mediator or be that person to hold that space for these conversations to happen? Are there any names, or are there any, not necessarily names, but are there people out there that you know of?
I know that there's some people out there that are professionally trained as therapists, counsellors, and so forth. Do I know if this is a STEM that they would like to offer their services in, or put a hand up to say, I'm quite happy to be a therapist that would handle that situation or take on clients within that situation? No, I'm not. I haven't really had the opportunity to discuss much.
I imagine they'll be out there anyway. Like, so if anyone is listening to this and anyone knows of anyone like that, definitely, you know, share their names with us, because there is it seems like not necessarily a hole, but like a need or a calling for this type of person, you know. And I'm imagining people who would love that. There's sure to be out there that people go, yeah, that's my jam. I love working in that space, you know. So
yeah, to be able to hold a space of two people in conflict,
the mediator space, that neutrality and that conflict resolution. I can already think of a few people of my friends who are really good at that, who might be
I mean, I can think of a few friends as well, but I don't feel without their consent.
I can already think of it.
That I have the right to actually word them. However, if they're listening to this, you feel as if you are a therapist that would like to put your name out there, please feel free to. And choosing the therapist that is trained in the aspect of the violation that's happened as well is something you have to take into consideration. I mean, I feel that we've brought consent to the surface, calling out has been done. Now we need to look at how to handle it from here on in.
It's similar to, like, do we just put the prisoners in jail and don't think of it as like a rehabilitation, or, you know, it's like, obviously there's a illness, or if we put sick people just in the hospital and just go over there, it's not like that. It's actually about rehabilitation and healing and deep healing and reintegration and integration and exactly.
And calling out is just one aspect. The damage that is done by calling out is huge. Like, what I've witnessed over the last few years of people calling people out.
As in, like, reputations being damaged and
businesses lost,
libel and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, the person who's been violated is calling out their health and well-being.
It's the demolish or
Diminishing the mental and physical aspects of it all. Yeah, it's a big one, Zulu.
Well, thank you so much for sharing about it with me and just opening this dialogue. I've thoroughly appreciated this conversation, and I look forward to continuing it as well. And I know this is just the beginning. This is just putting our toes in the water. You know, there's so much. There's so many pieces to this.
So my intent is to to be on the show is to actually ask people what their relationship to no is.
So we'd like some feedback from that.
Yeah, would love some feedback to hear. And I think there's some power in some cleaning some of that shit as well around 100%. people's relationship to no. Yeah, I've been trying to figure out some type of emotional clearing thing around the word no as a service in the last few weeks, because it's just like, let's really bring it back to ourselves and our own relationship with the word no. Are we strong enough to use it? Are we respectful enough to hear it and act on it?
Well, that's something you mentioned there, like strong enough to use it. Is like immediately when I hear the word no, I feel powerful. Like I feel power. Like when I say no, or when I look at a child say no in particular, it's like they have their own personal power. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's like, no. It's like, hey, would you like this? Or hey, do you want to eat this? Or hey, do you want to come here? It's like, no. It's like they can feel like they're themselves and they've got an ability to actually choose and make a choice. And same within yourself. There's this power and empowerment feeling that I feel when I say the word no and when I define that. So I feel that the more I use it and the more deeper I understand what my no's are, that I just feel like I have this personal power. I feel more empowered around it. So in that, it's like maybe it's like was pondering your idea of a clear around it. Maybe it's something to do like a clearing process, something around empowerment or something like this.
Yeah, so if there are any other spiralers out there, professional spiralers that want to brainstorm this and practice, I'm in for a jam.
Let's jam.
Let's jam this through. One point I do want to bring up though, when we play in the B&D fetish world, no is a word that's not often used, and it's not used in a way because how it is presented in normal society. We use safety words when we play rather than no or yes. And we use safety words that to avoid the confusion of no and yes. Because
of the spectrum of what that could mean.
Yeah. And because we are often working in fantasy world, so bringing in our own protocol around words to use rather than no or yes, or particularly no. So a safety word, for example, in the old school time used to be mercy. Mercy used to mean stop, mistress. I can't take any more, mistress. That has formulated into other words and signals over the generations. The current form that I use in my professional state and private play is the traffic light system of green, amber and red, or green, yellow, red, green, orange, red, depending on whatever you want to title that middle one.
Amber, yellow, orange.
And every person who uses it will have a different definition to what that means. For me, green, you use green to tell me that you're enjoying the situation that we're in, the activity, what we're doing, and that you're unable to articulate it in a begging form or a praising form or whatever form that your role is in at the time. So green is okay to use. Green, mistress. And I'm like, thank you. Red, of course, means stop.
Mm.
When you hear the word red, you stop instantly. And what you're doing, and then you communicate. Why are you using the word red? Or in my case, I tell them, if you're going to use the word red, you use it in a way. It's like, red mistress, that needle's hurting me too much, for example. And so I will stop and go, okay, let's communicate this. I'll stop the session and or stop what I'm doing and then go on and ask questions. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Mm.
Where's it hurting? How's it hurting? Okay.
It's like a proactive no.
Being proactive about it, and act on and take actions to what's needed to ensure that that person red is being respected and nurtured through it. Whereas amber, I used the word amber, and amber to me, I've noticed with different people, means different things. And amber to me means that you're close to a limitation. And that limitation from a scale of 1 to 10 is a 7. That limitation could be close to ejaculation, it could be too much stimulation, it could be particularly close to pain, feeling a bit of pain, uncomfortability. It could be as simple as, it's just not doing it for me, I'm bored, this is nothing to me type of thing. So it has several different, it has the freedom to, you have the client has a, subject has the freedom to express whatever that is. So again, amber mistress, I'm close to ejaculating.
Articulating the specific, yeah. And is that a technique that you would use in your own life? So you would use that system in terms of your own yeses and nos just in your everyday life as well?
Depending if I'm in role play or not.
Yeah, I'm also mean like with your own yeses and nos. So you check in with yourself. Someone walks up to your bar, you're not going to tell them amber, but you're going to check in with yourself and go, actually, that's an amber, or that's a red, or it's a green within yourself.
No, in my own personal life, it's pretty much a yes or a no.
Yeah, cool. So it's more so when in that scene role play. Yeah.
It's like my working. These are my safety word protocols, etiquette.
Yeah,
when I'm working to ensure that communication is flowing, giving that client, my subject, a language to use that I understand, but also letting him know what that language is, like actually describing, just not saying green, amber, red, actually breaking each one down.
And we kind of come back full circle and can go deeper into this stuff as well. The people that you screen out in your screening process, you know, you have a process. What experience do you have? Whatever your process is, and then you get someone who comes through and isn't the fit for you. Where do you send them? Like, if, for instance, and what's going to make them be not a fit for you, you personally?
If they have to resonate with what I'm offering, and they have to truthfully resonate with what I'm offering. I have many people approach me and say, oh, I want to do this. And I'm like, is that your truth? What is your intention really? The more honest you are of yourself, the closer to your fantasy we can actually get. So I have got a really good bullshit detector in me. I'm very good at reading or hearing people's bullshit. And I call it all the time. And with simple words like, is that your truth? Let's really look at what your intent is here. Are you wanting to see me because it's me? Because you've heard about me? You just want to have a session with me or be near me? Or say that you've seen me? Or is you coming to see me because we're compatible with what we both like? Yeah. So.
Yeah, because I'm just imagining that there might be people saying yes to things as well that because they need the money, or they, you know, they might be loose around what it is they necessarily want, or not quite clear, or they might actually want stuff that they aren't actually offering, you know what I mean? Like even in their service that they're offering, they might be a little bit loose around the precise roles that, and, you know, the yeses or the nos that they want to bring to their work. So I imagine you'd have to be really self-aware around that as well.
Yeah, you do. Okay, I've got people walking in.
Amazing.
Okay,
So that's
I'm online. Thank
awesome sauce. Thank you so much. We'll wrap it up there then. You got some company. I thoroughly appreciate your time, Electra, and definitely if you're listening to this, get in touch with us. And what's the question you'd like to propose?
My question, or my request, is for people to look at their own relationship with the word no. And if you feel as if your relationship isn't strong with the word no, hearing the word no, acting on the word no, or not acting on the word no, or using the word no, then I'm up for some emotional clearing around that. And I'm sure my other spiral crack people will be as well.
Yeah, we are. Excellent. Thank you so much, Mistress.
You're welcome. You've been a great student. Thank you. Thank you for the interview, and I look forward to hearing the responses or reading the responses.
Likewise, and yeah, I'll put some links for you in the bio area, so if anyone wants to get a hold of you, they can do that. And until we meet again, keep the flow growing and the growth flowing.
Fantastic, and I'll see you in Melbourne soon.